And as we are continuing to watch this countdown, we've got about 30.5 minutes remaining on the L- clock. Still in the hold at T- 10 minutes. This hold should clear once the L- clock hits L- 14 minutes. That would be the way that it would set up for a launch of the opening of the window. We'll see. It seemed like the closeout crew was in the process of leaving the pad a little bit past the original time. That's not to say that they can't make up that time in between now and then, but like you mentioned, they've got 2 hours to play with, so we'll continue to watch that. But what I wanted to ask you next is, assuming that this rocket gets off the pad today, if it needs to be another day, so be it, but once this mission is in flight, what are the main things that you're watching for to see how well they perform, or if they're able to perform them at all?
So a couple things, I think, from a technical test flight perspective, certainly is going to be in the probably one of the more challenging technical aspects of the entire flight is taking manual control, exercising all the thrusters on board the spacecraft and seeing how well it handles compared to the simulator in Houston. And Victor Glover, the pilot, will be in charge of that operation, assisted by his other crewmates as well, and reporting back step by step verbally how the vehicle is responding to his inputs on his hand controller. So that'll be really interesting to see. Plus, it's going to be really interesting to see the upper stage, either depending on their orientation, either backdrop by the blackness of space or backdrop by the Earth, as they're coasting out toward that apogee in the high Earth orbit. And it's going to be really cool to see. I love seeing space hardware in its natural environment, so to speak, where it's supposed to be operating. You know, we often see rockets and satellites in the clean room or on the pad. I really love to see imagery of satellites fully deployed or rockets operating where they're supposed to be operating. So it's going to be really cool to see. And in terms of the other technical thing I'll mention briefly, which is a big one, but it's going to be kind of carried out over the course of hours and days, not condensed into a 1 or 2 hour demo, is how the life support system performs. It has not flown before. It's the first time crew has been on the Orion spacecraft. So how the CO2 or carbon dioxide scrubber works, how the toilet works, how all that works, the heating, thermal control, that's going to be really interesting to see. But again, unless something breaks right off the bat, and hopefully it doesn't, that's going to be some data that NASA gathers over the course of days. It's not going to be, right here, right after launch, where they're doing this proximity operations demo. And the other thing I'll mention is, just from a gee whiz factor, obviously, is when they get beyond the far side of the moon on Monday, hopefully, if they launch today, seeing putting human eyes on some parts of the backside of the moon that have never been seen by human eyes before is going to be really, really cool. And I think from the perspective of the public, for those of members of the public who are maybe interested in space but not tuned in to every single launch, maybe not even tuned in today, I think when they see the imagery from the far side of the moon and hear the crew's insights and the crew's comments on what they're seeing, I think that'll be really, really inspiring.
Yeah, and just the fact that, as we've heard from the lunar scientists, that the human eyes can pick up certain color variations on the lunar surface that, we've had the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, at the moon for quite some time now, but human eyes can just make a distinction that cameras really can't, and so there's science in seeing the beauty of the moon, which sort of has a nice poetry to it.
Absolutely, and I think seeing imagery of the moon from beyond the far side with a camera not so different from the ones you and I might have at home will be really cool as well. Just seeing what, if we were there, what we would capture with our own eyes and with our own cameras. It's gonna be really neat.
We should only be so fortunate that maybe within our lifetimes we can imagine you or I traveling to the moon. If they need a pair of journalists, NASA, call us. We're available. This obviously sets the table for Artemis III and beyond, the reimagined Artemis III in low Earth orbit, and the crewed landings on the moon in 2028. There's a lot of runway to get between where we are now and getting either Starship or Blue Moon safely out to the moon. One of the big items that they both have to prove out, of course, is propellant transfer, which we had hoped and expected to see that from SpaceX last year. 2025 came and went with version 2 of Starship. Expecting to see flight 12, the first flight of a version 3, potentially sometime, now we can say this month, now that it is April. How are you feeling about getting to the road to prop transfer, given what we know about where we are right now?
You know, I think that's still a few flights away, at least for Starship. You know, I think